This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show.
Hi Sam, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Advisor 3.0 podcast. And for those that are listening that don't know you, you are Sam Challis of Another View Financial Services. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, and I've been looking forward to this one for many weeks. And we were just chatting as we were coming in about, what we can chat about and how we learn more about you as a person. But I guess that's a great starting point for us who are listening that don't know anything about Sam. Samantha, in case your mum's listening.
Yeah.
Where did it all begin?
So I actually joined financial services in 2004 and I worked for Barclays Bank, believe it or not, and you would have cut me in half and I would have said Barclays Bank. And actually the bank training was like phenomenal, like something that still is in me today. But yeah, so 2004 I started in financial services and I think I'm completely unemployable now. I couldn't go back into that culture of sort of like a bank environment. I really thrive on just doing my thing and helping my clients.
What was it that was more? Was it the rigidness of Barclays?
Yeah, I think so. I think financial services has changed a lot since 2004, and I feel it's an industry where you change or be changed. So, yep. And I don't think that. I think clients need you to be a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more holistic, and it was quite regimented. You had this client, they had that amount of money and they would do this product. And I feel like we've shifted away from that massively. What's
changed for you then? What was the first time you realised that you were at Barclays and you thought, this isn't the way I want to be doing this anymore? Was there a particular moment?
So they made me redundant. They made everyone redundant. So had they have not done that, I probably would still be sitting there now, if I'm being honest. It was the best thing that could ever happen, being made redundant, because it gave you that chance to almost reinvent yourself. At the time that we were made redundant, RDR had just come into play. So it was either a case of you get out the industry or you massively upskill yourself. So I chose to upskill myself. And I think for me, clients need you to be more... you kind of need to save them from themselves at times, which I know sounds a weird thing to do, but it is more about the feeling and how much confidence you can give clients to make a decision rather than they've got a pension and they're going to do this. For me, it's more about how do I make my clients feel.
So talk me through, made the decision, redundant, embark on a change. So not only are you kind of out of a job and you're embarking on a change, and how did you come up with Another View?
I was, again, it's like the industry is quite ancestral, isn't it? People know someone that knows somebody that knows somebody. So a few Barclays colleagues had gone to New Leaf Distribution, who's the network I belong to, and I had a bit of a conversation and thought, actually, I think they seem like the right place for me. I mean, I've been there since 2016, but it was very much that family vibe, that feeling. I don't know whether I'm probably harp on that a bit too much, but it is that it just feels like it's the right place and they allow you to really help your clients and they're quite dynamic in their thinking. So if you're not quite sure how you can help someone, there's someone in New Leaf that you can go to and they'll give you guidance, and I quite like that. So still need that reassurance as an advisor.
And New Leaf, the way that you describe it to me, outside of our recording today, but as you've just reconfirmed on the recording, they're quite dynamic and they're there to help and support change and the future thinking. But they didn't build your business, which is incredibly successful.
No.
You did. And tell us a little bit more about kind of the approach you decided to take that you think's been the fundamental change. Or has there been a mentor kind of through that upskilling yourself that helped you realise?
So fundamentally, when I decided to when the bank had kind of like pulled the job away, I was looking for that bank assurance role still. I was looking for that sort of role where I was going to be employed. It was nice and safe. And I quickly learned that didn't really allow me to be like my son's mum. So it was very much, I could have gone into another bank in that sort of environment, but my son would have had to be in breakfast club. He would have had to be in after school club. So my need to be my son's mum was my main driver to make this successful, because I wanted to control when I worked, how often I worked, and I wanted to be able to take him to school and pick him up. So him, or wanting to be his mum, was my fundamental reason to make this work. And I don't buy any leads. I'm not really on Unbiased. I don't work any sort of social media content or anything like that. All I do is client referrals, and that's how I've grown. But it is because I really fundamentally believe if I can help someone, I should. So I'll give people my time for free. Just they might have a pension statement they don't understand, and they'll come into the office and I'll spend half an hour with them, and then they walk out, and that's fine. That's fine with me, because then they would just refer me and I get that sort of word of mouth, client referral, which is amazing.
Which is interesting, because that's a word that I often hear in this room, which is the toughest question for an advisor to ask. It's it appears as though people are really good at what they do. IFAs in this industry, we've got some incredible people doing some incredible things for clients, but yet we still fear asking for a referral or to be recommended. How do you think giving away your time has got you comfortable with that?
So again, for me, it's that sort of, if I can help, I should. And I really do believe in good karma. I try to be the best person I can be, which sounds very sort of, geeky and almost unbelievable, but that's what I believe in. I believe that if you can help, you should. And no one's ever going to tell me that I'm wasting my time on that approach, because I think fundamentally it's allowed me to grow organically. All my clients, are real advocates of mine, so I'm happy with that. So when I give someone my time, I don't necessarily say, like, please refer me on to someone else, but part of that process in that first meeting is, the first meeting's on me, and I always say it like that. So, the first meeting's on me. If I send a letter of authority out to get scheme information, I don't charge for my time, because I have to have that information before I can make a sound assessment of what's going on. And then in that part, there's always kind of like a little bit of a repetitive spiel that I might always say that about actually, if at the end of it, you're in the right place, I'll just be honest with you and tell you. But hopefully, because I've done that for you, you'll be happy to refer me if anyone that needs help. And that's kind of how it goes. So I guess I do ask for it, but it's a soft ask.
It's kind of knowing your worth. That, you've understood that you are offering something to somebody because you want to help, but equally, you've got a business to run and a son to pay for, and those things don't grow on trees. It's really interesting for me, because Barclays seems to be an environment that was really restricted, if that's the right word. Banks were often back then referred to as product push homes, shall we say, and that was the focus.
Yep.
Rather than today's, the world is very much trying to focus more holistically and looking 360 and how they can further help end clients. But it seems to me that you went from a period of realising that actually redundancy was the best thing that happened to you, because it upskilled you, as you said. But actually, if you hadn't have been made redundant, you may still have been at Barclays. And yet, given the person and the advisor that you are today in the business that you run, I think the freedom that you have now may not have ended up as Barclays. And I'm just wondering if there was a particular person or mentor that, as part of your journey, I know you mentioned your son, that perhaps you saw in others the way that they were looking after end clients was a lot more meaningful.
I don't. So when and Barclays is a great employer. Like, honestly, they are so, there's like kind of forward thinking, if you, especially for ladies that have gone, had children and stuff like that, you had the scope to sort of, flexible working and stuff like that. So Barclays was a great employer. Yep. And I, still have friends today that are, from that Barclays sort of, era of when I was working. And I guess when I sort of become self-employed, there are a few people that I definitely didn't want to be like. And so I kind of learned that that's what I didn't want to be. And then again, going back to New Leaf, I guess Mark, who owns New Leaf, has been a huge mentor of mine. And it is that sort of looking at things at a different angle. So I think I've come first of all, I kind of saw myself as like being a self-employed advisor, and I'm just going to tip my toe in the water and give this a go. And then through sort of just coaching and education and that, even conversations with people like yourself, you go from being a self-employed advisor to, oh, I might be a small business owner now. And you just go through that natural cycle of moving through those goalposts, basically. But the industry is, you have to be in it. You have to want to be in it. You have to be all in. And if you are all in, then the people are there to support you. It is actually, you don't have, everyone can be competitive. That's not a bad thing to be. But actually in this industry, there's so many people that are willing to help others, more so than any other industry that I think I've ever been in. Because if you are up against it, people see you as competition. And I don't feel other advisors see other advisors as competition. They really want to help and support. So the industry is actually quite a positive industry to be in. I would class it as a profession. I know some people don't class it as a profession, but I absolutely do. So there is enough people around you to be that mentor, just to guide you in that way. So I do think it is a great industry to be in.
Thank you. I think that I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is an industry where everybody's open to learning. And actually, you can see that by the amount of conferences and webinars and just general learning that's available from lots of different walks of life, be it providers or institutions or other IFA practices, accountancies and so on. And actually, everybody shows up with quite an open mind, thinking, oh, I wonder how Sam's doing it, or I wonder how Kate's doing it. And, there does seem to be a lot more collaboration. Yeah. One of the things that I learned about you a very long time ago is that your focus very much is that, or maybe you correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, I think that, your view, as you've shared with me before, is that your clients have now become your friends in terms of the way that you interact with them and the way that you build those relationships. Can you just talk us through how that's been for you, if somebody's listening to the podcast that's embarking on their new journey, and how they should think about things and approach their ways? Yeah,
I think it's, and this is a selfish perspective as well. So, people might think that I'm really giving, but I actually get a massive kick out of being someone's go-to person. So I'm really proud of that. And when you look after people for as long as I have, some clients I've been looking after since, for 10, 15 years, you can't help but, is it crossing the boundaries? Potentially, some may see it as that, but you can't help but, again, be all in. So it's a privilege. I get to, people come in with their grandchildren. They've just, daughter's just had a baby or their son's just had a baby, and they bring them in to see me. Or sadly, I'll go to a client's funeral. And when you do things like that, you can't help but embrace their family and in their life, basically. And it's a huge privilege to me that someone trusts me enough to do that. So for me, I'm all in with my clients, as I keep saying, but it is a real privilege to have that sort of connection with them. And I respect that. And if they need me, like a client called me yesterday panicking about Sunday, some people will be like, well, I switch my phone off after 5 o'clock. My phone's constantly on. If it's appropriate and I can do it and it's not encroaching on my family time, I'm going to answer. And I just think because I give people 100% of me and I'm nosy, I want to know about their lives, that's, they give that back to me, and I can't, I'm so grateful for that.
Well, I think that the industry at the moment seems to have there certainly seems to be lots of conversations around, transferring of wealth and how advice firms need to think about our different generations and how they interact. And certainly lots of the conversations that I seem to be involved in this year is about how firms are planning for future families. Yep. And, the structure that you describe, you're actually very much the centre of that family. So heaven forbid when somebody passes, the family know who to go to in order to have that conversation. Do you think as an industry that we aren't doing enough potentially, where we've got clients around understanding wider family members, or I guess even members of potential influence? And that doesn't necessarily mean they're the decision maker, but clearly those that trust.
I think going forward, when you look at sort of especially what's happening with pensions and after April 2027, that are coming back into the fold for inheritance tax purposes. I think it's crucial to understand family dynamics. I think it's crucial to understand, actually where does that person want their wealth to end up, because it might not necessarily be who you think it's going to be. So unless you're having those conversations, you potentially aren't going to get the right outcome from your client. So in terms of the review process, even if I'm odds on certain that I know what that expressions of wishes form is going to say, in that review, I will always check that the expressions of wishes is correct, because actually it's that way of promoting that conversation. And I think that we need, I'm not saying that this is, what everyone does, but we need to move away from, this is your pension and it will give you X, Y, and Z when you retire. We need to move into those conversations, that holistic approach of this is your pension, this is what it can do for you. This is what potentially it can do for, your family members or whoever it may be. So we need to move away from this is a product. We need to move into how is it going to make you feel? How does it work for you? That's what I think we need to do. And I don't think you can do a good job unless you understand that bigger, wider family dynamic. So
I agree. Speaking of families, tell us about your son.
Yes, he's amazing. He's 17 now, so he's almost, a young adult, but he has been such a driver for me in terms of motivation and just making sure that I'm bringing up the best young man I can bring up.
And how do you manage the values of that, in the sense of wanting to ensure that we're installing it? I'm a mum of an 8-year-old, and it's busy and it's hard, and I'm with you, and in the sense of we want to demonstrate our best self and that we do things, but it can also be heavily demanding. How have you balanced that over the years between driving those values and managing the demands of running your own business?
So I would say that I've, again, speaking very honestly, over the last couple of years, I've struggled with my work-life balance. When Henry was little and in school, I was uncompromising. I was there to pick him up. I was there to take him, and nothing would get in that way. And I wasn't as busy back then as what I am now. So I do feel like I have struggled with my work-life balance. But because he's 17, I have a bit more scope to be able to do that, because obviously he's a bit more self-sufficient. So there is always that balance, even as a 17-year-old. So at college, he broke up from college early June. And then he didn't go back till mid-September. And I'm constantly, he's been on his own a lot today, so I'm constantly trying to sort of manage that. But it is easier now that he's older. But I think he knows that both mum and dad work hard. We've got the right disciplines in place. We've got the right morals in place. And I might say to him, sorry, bud, I've been really busy this week. And he's like, Mum, that's okay. Because he can see that we're working hard. And if you work hard and you do the right things, good things happen, basically.
And what's he studying?
He's doing A-level business, politics and history.
Oh, crumbles.
Yeah. They're quite juicy subjects, aren't they? So he's doing well, and he's studying and he's doing all the right things, and that's all I can ask of him, really. So, but he's super polite. He's an old soul in a young person's body. So he'll walk down the street and he'll say hello to someone. He'll say good morning to him. If he'll open the door for someone. I've tried to instill those,
values.
Yeah, basically. So, but yeah, he's a good boy.
So not financial advice then? You can't hand another view off to him in a few years' time?
He's always got the option to come into the business. I think that it would be nice for him to go and find himself and then potentially come back or come into financial services. Personally, I think it's the best industry. So I would have no problem with him coming into it. But I think he's more on the edge of sort of doing something history based or something like that. That's what he really enjoys doing. So
fab. But
he'll always have the option to come in.
And just talk us through then in terms of, that's a really good starting place. So if you had somebody, a Henry out there, and their parents were listening and they were trying to think of it, or somebody was new going into their financial advising career, they're just embarking, what advice do you think, or let's do it this way, what's the best piece of advice you were given that you'd pass on?
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone's slightly different in their approach. I would say that you need to feel comfortable with where you lay your hat, basically.
Yeah.
So you have to join a company where you feel that they've got the same culture and the same ethos as you. I think that's fundamental, because the one thing I would say about financial services, and I think we're getting better at this, there is a lot of smoke and mirrors to the industry, which is fine. But there's quite a few egos, there's quite a few sort of, old school mentality. So you do need to feel that wherever you decide to work, it is got the right culture and the right support, because the industry can be very heavily, regulated, which is the right thing, but the exams and everything like that. So you need someone to give you time and to nurture you and allow you to grow organically. It can't be rushed.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I guess on the flip, what would be the one thing you tell people to avoid?
Chasing any sort of money.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that if someone dangles a carrot, which is a financial carrot in front of you, they'll require you to, your pound of flesh. And sometimes that is earlier than what you're necessarily ready for it. But I think if you forget about potential earnings and what you can and can't earn in the industry, and actually just really focus on doing the right things, building your knowledge, building your client relationships slowly and organically, then it is the type of industry that you are rewarded financially. It comes as a sort of a given, but I don't think you should compromise how you get there.
So let's talk about network. And I don't mean New Leaf as your network. I'm talking about Sam's network in terms of whether or not that's family or friends. How did you go about and understand who were the key players that you needed in your networks? If somebody's out there today and they're thinking about actually sitting down and plotting out, who have they got in their lives that are helpful?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's not an easy question to answer because people overlook the obvious.
Yep, of course.
What's your view?
So and again, this is a really conscious decision of mine and something that isn't an easy decision to make. So I really like to associate myself with positive people. I find I've had a few friends in the past that have been super negative. There's always something going wrong. They don't have a particularly good attitude about things. And now I'm not saying my life is perfect. Things do go wrong. But I think even when things go wrong, you have to look at yourself and say, what did I need to learn from that? Am I going to grow from it and chalk it up to experience and be able to move on? So for a long time now, I've tried to keep my circle really positive and have that sort of like good karma effect, basically. So, and that can be quite harsh sometimes because you might like someone, but you feel like they're a bit draining or they're sort of, a bit negative. So then I make a conscious decision to distance myself from that because I don't want to have that sort of mantra in my life. But I'd say my husband is, the key person in my network. His business acumen is phenomenal. In one simple conversation, he can make me believe that everything is going to be all right. And then I've got a few key people that I would say are my go-to people, and most of them are outside the industry, so it's like my sister, for example. But you need someone to tell you you're wrong.
Yep.
And I think that's vitally important. So my office manager, she'll be like, we're not doing it like that, we need to do it like this. So you need to have that trust in people that actually, just because I own another view, I need people around me to say, no, Sam, this is not how we're doing it.
It's interesting that the firm is called Another View. And, you talk about people, you talk about good karma, you talk about doing the right thing, and you talk about always staying on the right side of what you think is good for the client.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Is that what formed part of Another View as the title? Or
yes.
am I perfect? Otherwise, I was making massive assumptions.
No. So, again, names are, you can get, I didn't want anything with wealth management in it.
Yeah.
I didn't want anything, with, I don't believe I'm a wealth manager, or anything like that. And actually, there's an argument about financial advisor, financial planner. I just try and do a good job for my clients. Whatever title you want to put on that, that's absolutely fine. Just want to try and do that good job for my clients. But you do have to constantly keep thinking in your head, am I doing the right thing? Making sure that, especially with the industry, you're moving with the pace of the industry to have that holistic approach, basically.
what have you seen that's fundamentally shifted?
For me, the biggest thing was, I guess, that I went through was RDR, which is obviously quite a long time ago. So it was back in 2011. And that was probably the main reason that we was all made redundant, because of the pressure of the regulation, and that bank assurance role wasn't really there because it was going to be too costly.
Do you think it was a good thing?
Absolutely. Like at the time, it was like, God, catastrophic. And I was like, what am I going to do? But actually, if I'm going to be advising clients, I have a duty to make sure that I'm the best advisor that I can be. So having to upskill yourself to that sort of baseline sort of diploma qualification was a challenge. A couple of years ago, I'd done my chartered exam, so I'm a chartered financial advisor now, because I felt like if someone was going to pay me for my time, at least I could have that knowledge behind me. So I think RDR was a massive thing. I think it was the right thing to do, because again, this is not, belittling that bank assurance role. It was product, all about the product, and little about the client outcome, basically. And I think the shift has been more about the client outcome, which is absolutely right.
And then how do you fit that in now with the way that you approach it? So there's been a change, for you, that's the fundamental change that's happened, moving away from product to more client outcomes. And I think that, the way you talk about approaching it, but how do you bring everybody else on that journey around you? So, for example, you are part of a network.
Yep.
And, whilst they're very open, they have a business to run and they have regulation and risk they have to adhere to. How do you keep your business in line with your values, as well as making sure that you're in line with what naturally New Leaf as a network need to think about?
So and again, this is a conscious decision. I've made a conscious decision to not compromise on my standards, if you like, and what I believe in. If I had wanted to, I could have had a team of probably 6, 7, 8 advisors around me now, and obviously just gone on that. I'm going to just recruit as many people as possible. They can all be self-employed, and, some might be work out and then others will move on. But because I really believe in that core ethos of trying to help, I didn't want to damage my reputation by just recruiting loads of people. So I guess to my detriment, I could have had, a bigger firm behind me. I could have been sort of working with, quite a few people. But I've made that conscious decision just to be myself. My office manager absolutely has the right beliefs and, processes in place. I'm incredibly lucky to have her. She's been working with me now for sort of 3 years. But I knew I wanted her before I'd even interviewed for her. I'd known about her through friends, and I knew that she had sort of like come away from work for a little while for some personal reasons. And I beelined on Facebook, let's have a coffee, because I knew she was the right person for my sort of mantra. So is it a detriment? I don't know. I could have a lot more people around me, but I choose not to, because I'm probably a little bit scared of getting someone to come in that doesn't have the same beliefs as me.
And do you think that there's a disconnect between what people think the role is and what the role is?
100%.
What's your view?
So, and again, I'm not saying this is right for everybody, but my view is that your clients are just everything. I don't own a client. They're not my clients. They choose to work with me. Those fees that I receive from them, I work hard for. I do the right thing, but then I don't own anybody, basically. Yeah. So you have to continually work for that relationship, and that is a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year process. But they choose to work with me, and I won't let them down.
You do realise this is going out live now. So anyone that's looking for a financial advisor, Sam, you've just committed to 24/7, 365 days.
But it is. It all, I mean, whether you work for someone or whether you work for yourself, if it's one of those jobs that you don't switch off from. Like, I was on holiday and one of my clients' fathers passed away. I'm going to call you. I'm not going to not call you, because that is a moment in time that they will always remember that I picked up the phone to them for. And that's what I'm saying. It's so much more than a product it's all about the service for me.
Do you stop and ever put the foot on the ball and look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself the praise you deserve?
No. So it's just what you do, isn't it? So, no.
Is it? Because I don't think that there's many people that we talk to and have advisors that can claim what you claim and deliver what you deliver.
That's lovely that you say. I really don't receive compliments very well.
We're not cutting that bit out.
But it is I say this, it is a privilege to do what I do, and I'm so honoured to do it. So it doesn't feel like it's hard work. It just feels like it's the right thing to do. And as I said, I could have had a team of, so many more people behind me, but I don't want to compromise on what I stand for.
I think that if I was to summarise, Sam's view of the world and your advice to anyone that's listening is being yourself, being authentic, understanding what you want to offer from your business point of view, so you can recognise quickly who you'd want to work with and who you don't want to work with, because it's a two-way street, as you said. And I think standing by those principles when times may cause you to question them. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people in our industry and lots of things on offer, from investments to platforms to products to the way you should do it to switch reports to back office systems. And actually what the important thing is for anybody that's out there listening or embarking on the journey, it's kind of taking that soul searching moment to sit down and figure out your spider map and what you stand for, and kind of pinning that to all, remembering that. Yeah.
And again, it's you do, as I said, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the industry, and you can get caught up in it for the wrong reasons, which I'm not saying it's difficult, isn't it? Because people earn incredibly well from this industry. And again, that's a privilege. I think it is a privilege to be able to say, I have good earnings, it gives you a good standard of living, but that comes with the mantra that you have to work for that. It's not a given. So I do think you just need to really be honest with what you want from the process.
And lastly, Sam, another view is it's a hugely successful business. Are you happy to share with us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, of course.
In terms of clients and size and what you look after?
Yep. So I look after around 150 clients, which is quite a large number. But as I said, it's not just me. I've got Ros that sort of helps me with that process as well. I've got about 33 million under management. But I will help. I don't segment my clients. Yep. I find that quite a gross sort of concept. So if someone needs to set up a pension and put £100 a month in, I'm absolutely going to help you. If you've got £2 million to invest, I'm going to help you. I will help anyone. As long as it's the right thing to do, I will give you my time to work out the best route for you.
And what's next for Another View? And Sam?
I think more of the same. I'd quite like that. If I was being critical on myself, I feel like I need to embrace technology more. I want to be able to upskill myself in terms of what that looks like for the industry as well. I think there is again, a bit of a culture change in terms of the technology that we should be embracing. And I am literally a dinosaur. I have a pen and paper. I write a paper fact find. So I need to upskill myself, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to look after the number of clients that I do. So for me, this year, next year, it's all about embracing that sort of technology, I suppose, and making it easier to do my job.
Wonderful. Sam, sadly, we've run out of time today, but thank you so much for joining us on the Advisor 3.0 podcast. It's been sensational.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.